Welcome to our study of Omniscient Jigme Lingpa's Treasury of Precious Qualities. So as always, kindly generate the awakened motivation, recognizing, and this is probably the most important thing almost, recognizing the relevance of this in the context of our entire experience of our existence. What we're studying here is not an isolated phenomenon, a Buddhist thing that can be classified into some category of something foreign, exotic, mystical. When we talk about the Dharma, we're talking about studying reality. Dharma, when we talk about it in sort of a general sense, it means phenomena, how things are, how we experience things, what are the nature of things. Dharma with a capital D, Sudharma or Satdharma, means what the Buddha discovered. And that means someone who discovered not just the phenomena as we generally perceive it, but actually discovered the nature of phenomena and extracted himself from complete delusion. And so this Dharma that then comes from the awakened one is the insight into reality. And of course, due to language, we refer to it as an ism, and we think of Buddhism as a religion, and we think about it as something Indian or Tibetan and so forth. And these ways we can sort of classify it according to the conventions. But when we're approaching this, we have to be a little bit more sophisticated and understand that we're not just studying something that's limited to a narrow scope that sort of can be objectified in terms of something out there. What we're studying is the insight into the entire realm of our experience, our phenomenal experience of ourselves, the experience of the phenomenal world out there. And as such, we're getting to the bottom of reality, not from the point of view of wishing to be philosophers, but from the point of view of the problem that we have in this universe is misapprehending or misunderstanding the nature of reality. And for that reason, there's so much suffering. So when we engage with this, we engage with it with a recognition of its relevance in terms of the entire realm of suffering sentient beings, samsara. But we do so from the understanding that this samsara is created by confusion and actually doesn't exist. It doesn't have, there is no samsara as such. There's a delusional condition of experience that we get stuck in where we completely misapprehend reality, solidifying what is in fact a web of causes and conditions dependent arising. And within that web of cause and conditions and effect, there's so much confusion that sentient beings, even though they wish to be happy, they are perpetually generating their own suffering. So that's where we come to this, on one hand, wishing to understand reality, on one hand, seeing how this is relevant for all sentient beings. This is the universal insight into the nature of all sentient beings. But we do so particularly from the point of view of understanding the suffering that there is in the world. So we bring to this attitude of compassion, recognizing how delusion is not innocent. It creates this continual perpetuation of suffering. So with that intention, as we engage with this study, we then presently are looking at the chapter on refuge. And that's where we look at what will get us out of here. That is the absence of confusion. That is us purifying delusion, us being cured. And the doctor here is the Buddha. The Buddha has discovered the cure for suffering. And so we are following the Buddha's advice, the Dharma, and we do so together with the other patients, the others that are also sort of recognizing that there's an issue and something needs to be done about it, namely the Sangha. So we've identified the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and then the application of this, not just leaving it out there as, oh yeah, there's the philosophical phenomenon called the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, but in terms of actually applying ourselves to this, there's taking a refuge. And that taking of refuge is us surrendering, committing, and recognizing the truth of the Buddha, wishing ourselves to be cured, that we then attend to the practice of the path. And this we begin with the practice of taking refuge, the recognitions of the pain of the confused condition, and with the determination to be free from that. We do so understanding that with us presently held by confusion, we suffer, and yet this confusion is not something that's permanent. Our confusion is not something that's always there. We're not defined in terms of an absolute confusion. It's removable, and that was the Buddha's enlightenment, to see that confusion is a temporary condition that can be eliminated. So we take refuge from the point of view of being subject to this incredible confusion that creates so much suffering, and simply seeking safety in the wisdom of the Buddha. So we now are in the chapter of taking refuge. So practically speaking, then we'll look at Rigzen Jigme Lingpa's comments here, and this is then about the value of taking refuge. Let's just see here. So the benefits of taking refuge. So we were in a dangerous place and we escape to a place of safety. So the root text reads, just as the extent of space cannot be sounded, likewise fruits of actions white or black related to the triple gem are measureless. If taking refuge could assume a form, the whole of space could not encompass it. So we cannot measure the extent of space. And that's not even something you could say that's particular, like a sort of big statement. We can ourselves look up into the sky and just ask ourselves, where does it end, right? So this is not something that is abstract or foreign. It's simply a fact that we cannot measure space. We can make a lot of theories about it, but at the end of the day, we look up and we cannot find any end to it. So the vastness of the value of the triple gem cannot be described. And it also likewise is then the fact that our interaction with the triple gem, if it's white in the sense of if it's constructive, it's that place where we really could free ourselves. It has so much immense value. And if we turn our back on it, which is then the black, if we perpetuate our own destructive actions and ignore the triple gem, that's also such an incredible waste, such a loss. Nothing could be more really sad. So that's where we talk about the fruits of the actions, whether they are positive or negative, they're measureless. So the bottom line here really is the value of the triple gem, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and us aligning ourselves with this, us taking refuge in this, has such an incredible value, which now Kangyur Rinpoche will expound upon. Kangyur Rinpoche writes, just as it is impossible to encompass the immensity of space in any of the 10 directions, it is likewise impossible to fathom the benefits and defects resulting from positive and negative actions performed in connection with the three jewels. Such is their tremendous importance. The merit resulting from taking refuge is limitless. Indeed, if it were able to assume a physical form, space itself could not contain it. The Vimala Sutra says, if the merit of taking refuge possessed shape and mass, it would fill the whole of space, and still there would be more. So again, this issue is a consequence. It's something that we encounter if, for example, we meet somebody who's very powerful. If we can ingratiate ourselves with them, then sometimes it can be very helpful. If we know the right people, that can be very helpful. Then again, if we get on the wrong side of persons, then it could also be very damaging. So that's where we sort of use this sort of sense of the immensity of the three jewels to understand that our connecting has such value, our disconnecting is such a loss. So then Jigme Lingpa in the next verse, he writes, refuge is the entrance to the Buddhist fold and the basis of all vows. It will put an end to sins and obscurations, driving perils far away. It will guard us from the chasms of the lower realms and keep us in the presence of the triple gem. In life, we'll taste of every excellence. Our stores of merit will be filled, whereby the twofold Rupakaya is attained. So on the basis of taking refuge, we basically engage the Buddhist journey. The first thing we do is recognize that samsara is suffering, and not only we do so in a philosophical way, but we do so on the basis of fear, actual angst, actual understanding how bad this is to be stuck in this experience. So taking refuge is then us beginning to be constructive in terms of extracting ourselves from this condition. Puts an end to sins, again, sins being this word that indicates destructive actions, and obscurations, the veils that prevent us, that we've sort of generated on the basis of our confusion, that prevent us from recognizing our ground, our Buddha nature. So taking refuge puts an end to these obstructions. It drives perils far away. It guards us from the lower realms. It keeps us in the presence of the refuge, the triple gem. And in this life, we'll taste excellence, and also ultimately, it will bring about the twofold Rupakaya, which is the manifest aspect of awakening, which is the Sambhogakaya, the subtle aspect of awakening, and the conspicuous aspect of awakening, the Niyamanakaya. So these two kayas constitute really the compassionate display of the form that the taking of refuge, or the merit, the accumulation of merit manifests. So we have these two, what we could call the relative or the form bodies, Rupakaya. Sambhogakaya, the subtle enjoyment body of awakening, and the Niyamanakaya, the compassionate manifestation of enlightenment. Kangyur Rinpoche comments, in brief, it is by taking refuge that one becomes a Buddhist. Refuge, therefore, is the criterion distinguishing those who are within the Dharma from those who are not. Refuge is the basis of all the vows of Pratimoksha, Bodhisattvayana, and Mantrayana. Through taking refuge, all actions that are negative by their nature, all transgressions of the vows, and all obscurations will be purified. So by the mere fact of aligning ourselves with awakening, which we do by taking refuge, all these negativities and these obstructions, they are purified. So it says here, this means that refuge is the basis of the path by means of which negativities will be successfully purified. It does not mean the automatic and sudden removal of evil karma by the act of taking refuge. So we're not talking about a miracle cure in which taking refuge, all of a sudden we shall be absolved of all obscurations, but we're on the path, and it's in taking refuge that we're connecting with the nature of awakening. Kangyur Rinpoche writes, it is impossible for anyone who has taken refuge to be harmed by an evildoer, human or divine. So of course, this would be in an ultimate sense that the mind of someone who has taken refuge is connected to awakening, connected to what is constructive, wholesome, something that takes us into, you could say, higher realms. And so even though there might be those that sort of externally might be assaulting us or harming us, then ultimately the nature of the experience of someone who's taken refuge will be, you could say, unconditioned by these external assaults. He says even a person in whose mind stream is the cause for falling into the lower realms will be safeguarded from such a destiny. So we might have previously committed actions that bring about negative experiences, but taking refuge, we're already going to be connecting with that which goes far beyond that. Until then, we're kind of stuck in a small place. Now we're connected with something that extracts us from this vicious circle. Those who take refuge, regardless of where they are born and throughout the sequence of their lives, will be blessed by the presence of the three jewels. So both regardless of where they are throughout place, time, and so forth, there is this presence of the three jewels. And what we mean with blessed is that it's something that goes beyond just information. It's something that's deeply touching. It's something that runs as a condition of within our spirit. So it's something that brings about also a magical dimension, not in terms of something that is sort of because it comes from the absolute good, but it's simply just because there's that quality of being connected with awakening. Kangyur Rinpoche says, in this very life, they will enjoy the excellence of samsara and nirvana. And having completed on the conceptual level the accumulation of merit, they will at length accomplish the two form bodies, the Sambhogakaya and Niyamanakaya. So we talk about the two accumulations. There's the accumulation of the merit, which is on the level of, you could say, appearances, conceptual level, where we talk about the conspicuous aspects of enlightenment, Sambhogakaya and Niyamanakaya. And we have the other accumulation, which is the accumulation of wisdom, and that is what brings about wisdom, the Dhammakaya. But here we emphasize how the taking of refuge creates the condition for the two form bodies, the Sambhogakaya and Niyamanakaya. When we talk about fear of samsara, we're talking about the fear of the condition that drives our confusion. We're talking about the fear of being essentially deluded. And of course, the nature of delusion is that we go through all the various kinds of sufferings in samsara. So that's where we talk about the sufferings of meeting what we don't like, losing what we attach to, and the experiences of birth, old age, sickness, and death. We understand the entire realm of samsara is a big delusion in which, on the basis of clinging to self and positing other, this duality, that we continually experience a condition that's delusional. And there's countless ways in which suffering plays out. We would say the lower realms of samsara are enormous, and there's very few that are reborn in the higher realms. So presently we have this incredible fortune to be born in the higher realms. But the nature of samsara, because it's imbued with this fundamental confusion, which is all about self. And once there's a self, then there's attachment and aversion. Once there's attachment and aversion, there's continually these toxic states of mind that are perpetuating suffering. There's continually experience of suffering in terms of our perception of where we are, in terms of ourselves, and so forth. So there's continually the seed of suffering that plays out in so many different painful ways. So that's where presently taking refuge protects us from this fearful condition. So Jigme Lingpa then in verse 20, he writes, Resultant refuge, undeceiving, is the threefold door to liberation. It is the ultimate expanse, transcending all expectancy. The nature of the mind, the uncompounded Vajra. It is the perfect gathering of wisdom and attainment of the twofold purity. So right now we've looked at the causal refuge, which is what brings about the gradually over time will bring about the results of awakening. The resultant refuge, however, is the nature of reality as it is right now. And it's the recognition of that which really constitutes our escaping the fears of samsara. We can, on the causal refuge, there's the Buddha, who we listen to, we follow the Buddha's path, and then eventually we free ourselves from obscurations and we realize the abiding intrinsic ground, attaining enlightenment. But this is a causal refuge in which there's something that we understand, and on the basis of that we practice, and in the future we attain enlightenment. But the resultant refuge, that's the insight into the nature of reality. And there we talk about the threefold door to liberation: emptiness, lack of characteristics, and what we call wishlessness, that is not created on the basis of wishful thinking. And so that is the ultimate expanse. That's the nature of reality. That's where we, in the modern world, we think, oh, we have a science that understands reality. We accept it doesn't. It can navigate the phenomena very successfully, but it doesn't actually understand the nature of reality, doesn't understand matter, doesn't understand consciousness. And so we have a very poor insight into to reality ordinarily, the way we're educated. What we come across here is a profound insight into the nature of phenomena as not being something that can be grasped. It transcends any kind of reference point, anything that we might posit in terms of something solid. So that's where we then take refuge in the Buddha as someone who has seen that. But we also understand that this is not just the Buddha who has seen it, but despite us knowing it or not knowing it, it's there. It's the nature of the reality. It's the ultimate expanse that is already spontaneously present. And so that is the ground, that is the nature of this mind that we experience through. And this nature is luminous. It's endowed with all the qualities of awakening and so forth. And it's the taking refuge here is simply the recognition and the full realization of this nature. And that's then referred to as the perfect gathering of wisdom. So this is the second accumulation. The first we looked at before with the causal refuge has to do with the accumulation of merit. Here's the accumulation of wisdom. And it's there that we attain the twofold purity. Twofold purity means there's a purity that's basic to all, you could say, beyond samsara and nirvana. There's the purity that's basic to Buddhas and sentient beings. There's the uncontaminated ground. So that's the abiding natural purity. But then there's the purity of having eliminated the temporary condition of confusion. And that's where the attainment of enlightenment is, where we attain the twofold purity. The first purity, abiding purity, that we all have. So that's the good news. That's very important, actually. That is understanding that we are not basically confused, we're basically pure. And there's no difference between us and the Buddha in that regard. But there's a significant difference between us and the Buddha in terms of having realized it or not, having eliminated the veils that prevent us from seeing this nature. And that's where enlightenment is referred to here as the attainment of the twofold purity. So to say that again much more eloquently through Kangyur Rinpoche's commentary here, it says, resultant refuge, absolute and infallible, is the recognition of the true and uncontrived nature of the mind, the realization of the equal taste of samsara and nirvana, as referred to in the expression, the three doors of liberation. So, the 3 doors of liberation. The first of these is that all phenomena encompassed by the mind and mental perception are without inherent existence. They are empty. The second is that even though the creative display of the mind is unfettered, it eludes all description and definition, for it is beyond all characteristics and description, pure, impure. So, first of all, the nature of reality is empty. And however much there might be phenomena, the actual nature itself is intangible. It is beyond any kind of, you could say, reference or description and so forth, what we call characteristics. So emptiness, absence of characteristics. The third is that this manifestation is beyond all discriminative, acceptance and rejection, all action and refraining from action. It transcends all expectancy. What we mean with expectancy, it transcends anything in terms of what we might like or not like. It's not like, oh, I really, may Buddhahood come about, may purity come about. Purity doesn't come about on the basis of us wishing that phenomena are pure. They simply are pure. It's about us realizing it or not. So it has nothing to do with our particular angle in this, whether there's something that we want or not want. This is simply just the nature of reality. It's beyond our wishful thinking. It's beyond something that we'd want. It's beyond all expectancy. So these three, they refer to as the 3 doors of liberation. And those who are tantrikas, they very often will see in Vajrayana these triangles, that sometimes the dakinis, they stand in the triangles, and sometimes we have symbols of triangles and so forth. And these triangles, they essentially represent this wisdom that understands emptiness, lack of characteristics, and freedom from wishful thinking. So, Kangyur Rinpoche says, no result is aspired to, no result is hoped for, no reliance is placed in some extraneous refuge separate from the nature of one's mind. So this is ultimate refuge. This is because one settles evenly in the naturally pure expanse, the deepest fundamental nature of the mind, unshaken by dualistic thoughts of subject and object, the state of wisdom of uncompounded Vajra luminosity. Being free from clinging to conceptions of the 3 spheres, one fulfills the accumulation of wisdom, attaining the Dharmakaya endowed with the 2-fold purity, the natural primordial purity and the purity resulting from the removal of all adventitious stains. So again, settling into this nature is something that is beyond any of the ordinary concerns about myself, the object, and so forth. And it's within this state that is free from what normally holds us back. All the qualities of the nature of the ground unfolds, and that's what we refer to as luminosity. That's where the true nature of phenomena manifest. So this nature of luminosity is present within our entire sphere of existence, if you like. But presently, on the basis of the filtering of confusion, we fail to experience it, and we simply just understand ourselves in terms of our ordinary identity, skandhas, and so forth, the external world in terms of the elements and so forth. And we fail to see the luminous nature of phenomena in terms of wisdom and the light of wisdom. So this is where then the ultimate way of taking refuge is settling into that unconfused condition. And that's free from any notion of subject, object, and action, what we call these 3 spheres. I'm going to see here. I'm going to do one more verse. I'll tell you because I need to end a little bit early today. I hope you'll forgive me. So we'll do one more verse. Yeah, what are the 3 spheres Kangyur Rinpoche mentions? These are subject, object, and action. Yeah. So the precepts. Okay, so when we take the vows, when we become Buddhists, we commit. And Trungpa Rinpoche, he makes a good point of this. He says we're a bit like a slippery fish. We might sort of get into Buddhism in sort of a philosophical way, but as long as it doesn't interfere too much with our agenda and our ego and so forth, we'd like to align ourselves with the Buddhist path. But it's a bit more than that. And that's where we need to actually surrender our confusion. We've escaped from trouble, so it's no good if we sort of invite trouble into where we're now safe. So that's where there's a place where we have taken refuge, where the preceptor snaps his or her finger, and we've received refuge. So that's where then we have some commitments. Also, Kangyur Rinpoche says the most important commitment is really to recognize that our confusion is removable. But that said, there are also ways in which we conventionally then have practices that we undertake, commitments that we undertake in order to really consolidate the actual experience of progressing as we now have taken refuge. So in the root text, Jigme Lingpa writes, there are precepts for both causal and resultant refuge. According to the first, the triple gem is not to be abandoned, even at the cost of life or limb. No need to speak of doing so for sake of power or gain. The Lama is himself the essence of the triple gem, and having taken refuge in him, we should spurn pretense and all improper talk. So this is where, now that we're safe, we might be corrupted in one way or another and think, oh well, this is all very good, but I need this, I need that, and so forth, and not really understanding the pervasion of the benefit. So this is where we also don't want to, at this point, settle for, you could say, settle for anything less. Now we've actually gained access to what is truly going to save us. So that's where it would be silly if at this point we sort of have some superficial concerns that where we then take refuge in what is in fact not at all worthy. Basically, we wouldn't settle for patch solutions. Now we're getting to the bottom of things. We're not going to settle for just something that superficially might remove some issue. So we're committed to this, and we don't give it up. So that's where we understand the universality of the teacher who grants refuge and who is the essence of the three jewels. So that's where we now begin to look at some pretty specific practices that come with having taken refuge. So first, the things that we avoid. So as Kangyur Rinpoche comments, it is possible to speak of common and uncommon precepts. The former state that the three jewels must not be forsaken even at the cost of, it is possible to speak of common and uncommon precepts. So first, the common. The former state that the three jewels must not be forsaken even at the cost of one's life. No need to mention, then, that they must not be denied for the sake of social or ecclesiastical preferment of or gifts of gold and silver. So that's where somebody comes along and says, you might be, having taken refuge, but you'll be rewarded if you join our team. That actually does take place. Not in Buddhism, but it's sort of part of missionary strategies sometimes. In particular, since spiritual masters are the embodiments of the three jewels, once one has taken refuge, one must refrain from addressing them in disrespectful and unpleasant ways. This is where we've actually found safety. Then we actually would want to not project our habitual likes and dislikes onto the object of refuge. So the same applies to all beings worthy of respect. Likewise, one should abandon all deceitful and false behavior towards one's teacher, all improper talk, all blaming, and all kinds of grumbling. So we engage with the teacher in a way that expresses our appreciation. We don't sit around gossiping or beginning to project our troubles onto the teacher. I took refuge, but I'm still unhappy, and that's your fault. or just generally grumbling, whinging, complaining, and so forth. This is far too big for these kind of small small styles of behavior. So I think we'll leave it at that today. So these are the precepts of refuge. Any questions? I have a few minutes if you need. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is the wisdom of the Buddha? The wisdom of the Buddha is the absence of confusion. Okay, welcome. All right, we'll conclude with dedication. Actually, sorry, I apologize. I started without invoking Jigme Lingpa. So we'll do that now. The source of love and compassion for all beings, who knows all that is knowable, emanation of Longchenpa, heir to a treasury of mind termers, sky-like yogin of the vast expanse of luminosity, Jigme Lingpa, at your feet we pray. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we're born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together. So again, apologies for cutting it a bit short today, but we shall meet again next week. Thank you.